This video is about what I have learned about Sabbath and the meaning of work. I didn't grow up keeping Sabbath. I didn't have a community teaching me how to do it. I began keeping Sabbath on July the 4th, 2020, shortly after I realized who the biblical Israelites were and the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Holy Scriptures came alive for the first time. Back then, I kept Sabbath the way most people do when they're new. I stopped everything. I shut down the house. I avoided movement. I avoided anything that felt like work. I was sincere, but I was also scared. I didn't want to break the Sabbath, so I assumed the boundaries were extremely tight. Over time, I realized I wasn't resting. I was restricting, and that's not what God intended. As I began studying the Hebrew words for rest, I realized Scripture describes something completely different. In Genesis 2, when God rested, the Hebrew word is Shabbath. He ceased from his creative work. But in Exodus 31:17, it says God not only rested, he was refreshed. That word refreshed, nafash, means to breathe again, to revive, to recover life. That changed everything for me. And so then I wanted to know what that kind of rest looks like for humans, not just for God. So I chased down every place Nephash appears, and I found it in a moment of deep exhaustion in David's life. 2 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 14 says, "The king and all the people with him came weary and refreshed themselves there." That's the picture. Rest isn't restriction. Rest isn't fear. Rest isn't shutting down life. Rest is nafash, the kind of rest where you breathe again, where strength returns, where your soul comes back online. That's what Sabbath is supposed to produce. Not paralysis, not deprivation, but refreshment. The kind of rest that makes you whole again. That was enough to help me understand the why of Sabbath. But maybe a year later, I zoomed in on the what of Sabbath. What are we resting from? So I studied the actual Hebrew word for work, and everything changed. The word translated work in Hebrew is Malachi, Strong's 84399. It appears 167 times in Scripture. I didn't just read definitions, I read every single verse and I categorized them. I charted them. I looked at what Malachi is and what Malachi is not. And what I found shocked me. Malachi is productive, official, representative work, not daily life. Construction and production, building the temple, temple repairs, oversight of construction, craftsmanship. Its official duties like priestly service, Levite responsibilities, royal or governmental work. Its covenant enforcement, like when the men had to separate from their foreign wives, administrative decisions, representative tasks. Its creation work, God's creative work in Genesis. Malachi is always productive, official, representative work. It's never ordinary life. In fact, the root word for Malachi is Malek, which refers to the angels. What Malachi is not is eating, carrying household items, childcare, travel. The Shumanite woman traveled during Sabbath. Guarding. Nehemiah's guards protected workers, but that was not Malachi. The Bible never calls normal life Malachi, not once. There is a danger in over defining work. When we define work too broadly, we end up forbidding what God allows, especially the things that might refresh us. We turn rest into restriction and deprivation, and we create fear instead of freedom. We end up policing life instead of ceasing production. Sabbath is about stopping Malachi, not stopping life. So, what can you do on Sabbath? You can do things that refresh you. In Exodus chapter 12 and verse 16, it says, "Do no manner of work except that which every man must eat." So if you are preparing food, that is allowed. That will help you to be refreshed. If you are eating, that is allowed. That will help you to be refreshed. In fact, Judith never fasted on the Sabbath because the Sabbath is about being refreshed. You can walk. You can travel. The Shunammite woman traveled to see the prophet. You can carry household items. You can enjoy fellowship. You can rest. You can worship. You can read. You can sing. You can sleep. Anything that allows you to be refreshed. Sabbath is a day to stop producing and start enjoying. After 6 years of practicing Sabbath, I am still learning, but I can say that today my Sabbath is peaceful. I don't produce, I don't create, I don't do official work, but I live, I enjoy, I rest, I delight. I keep Sabbath the way Scripture defines it, not the way fear defines it. Sabbath is not a day of restriction. It is a day of restoration.